These cards can be used in all kinds of ways for all sizes of learning designs. My hope is that once someone is a bit familiar with them, they'll pick them up and use them in whichever ways work for them. I have found that, though, that it's helpful to provide people with a few example formats to begin with, so we can start with one of those. The most basic format is one where you more or less lay down all the cards that you intend to use. There's 5 types of cards. There's pedagogy, content, engagement, assessment, and analysis. We're going to set aside the analysis cards for now, so what I do is I choose a category and I look through those cards for which ones I want to use. I usually start with pedagogy, so let's say that I want the learning that I'm designing to be about life and career skills, so that's one card, and I also want them to learn using an authentic but safe and emulated environment, so that's another card. I can look through the other ones and already I see there's some more that I want to include. It's really easy to get carried away with them, so you kind of have to stick with the ones you want to use as core, just at least to start with. I'll look at assessment next, because I like constructive alignment. I actually have 2 assessments in mind for this already. I want the students to record a 2-minute video of themselves answering basic job interview question, then participate in the lesson resources and activity, and then do the video again with a hopefully improved response. So the first assessment is individual, it's authentic, and it's formative. And I'll just make a little post-it note here to remind myself what I had in mind with that. The second assessment will be the same thing, but it's summative. And that one will be graded. Looking at content next, this is where I decide what is going to be sort of the meat of the lesson, what are the resources and things that I need. I'm going to think big for this one, so how about a VR field trip to a workplace where the student as a viewer is sitting in the interview panel and watches responses from a few new grads who are interviewing, then back in the real world they'll use a VLE forum to discuss what they think about what they saw, who they would hire, and so on. Great. So VLE forum, or sorry, VLE, let me rearrange these a little bit. Tends to get a little bit spread out. And there'll be an online seminar that is discussion based. And let's say that this is an internal learning resource because I'll have to make it. Engagement leads on from this. What is it about the session or the lesson that students will find motivating? This is actually a really tough category. I think a lot of teachers assume students just need to engage, so they will. Whereas in my experience, you really have to deliberately plan for this kind of thing because it rarely happens spontaneously. What are they going to be doing? Why should they care? Anyway, that's a whole other discussion. In this scenario, I'll call the VR stuff a playful learning element. And there's web-based communication. And maybe there's a kind of storytelling too, but I think that might be reaching, so I won't go for that one. And I think I need to add some cards here, actually. This is why it's still not quite finished. Maybe bring your own device is engaging, and the fact that it is immediately relevant. Let's say these guys are about to go out and try and find jobs. So the last category is analysis. These cards have questions on them to help you think critically about what you've laid out. You could use as many or as few of these as you want. So in this case, looking at these questions, the questions that grab me is this realistic? And will this work for all my students? Looking at this, no, actually I don't think it's realistic, and it probably won't work for some students. So how do I know if their mobiles can handle VR or, 360 video even? Have I given them all a cardboard? I don't even have this VR environment. Am I going to be able to make it? So in this instance, scrap that whole part, including the engagement stuff that comes along with it. And let's say this cohort is just terrible at discussion. They either don't talk or they get way off topic, and I'm just tired of fighting them, and I'd rather just do something that they just want to get their heads in to do. So they'll actually do a lot better if they're given examples and left to practice. So let's do that. So let's have maybe a 5-minute lecture video from the teacher. Some links to helpful FAQs, websites, good and bad example videos, supplementary materials, and then they're not really going to do a lot of discussion. And independent practice was the important part. And what I'll do is I'll set up a link on the VLE where they can re-record practice 2-minute videos as much as they want. So that's the independent practice. So engagement, we still have the BYOD. They can use their phone to do all this, or even to do the practice videos, and it's still immediately relevant. I think that's a better plan. And ultimately, I'll make some notes or take a picture to remember what I designed, and then off I go.